Hello out there, and in front of you today is a CRKT Ripple, and this is a Snap-on co-branded version of the Ripple, and it's one that I had no idea existed until I came across it on eBay about a week ago, and I picked it up at a decent price. Now today, I want to get into this specific knife because there is one interesting aspect about this variation, and I guess a couple of the newer variations that is very different for CRKT and raises a big question mark. So we're going to be disassembling this in just a couple minutes. But the first half of this video is sort of going to be a little bit of a rant about Snap-on. And I've said this stuff before, so if I sound like a broken record, or if you've been following me and you really are familiar with Snap-on, this might make sense to you and you might have heard it all before. But it can just be really frustrating with CRKT and their relationship with Snap-on, just because a lot of these variations that seem interesting, that seem to be things that people would want, are just not available anywhere else but Snap-on. And unfortunately, Snap-on charges a pretty high price for these knives. So what I'm going to do right now is just go through the Ripples that I currently have and sort of talk about what the variations are that Snap-on has exclusively, so you can get an understanding of what's what, and then the price difference too. So when the Ripple first came out, there were two different versions and two different sizes. So here's the more budget version. It's the aluminum version, liner lock, 8CR, 13 or 14 MOV. This one is actually a favorite of a lot of people, even more so than the quote-unquote nicer one that I'm about to show you. So there were these two, and then there was a stainless steel Ripple. It's a little bit fancier looking. This one has a Kudo 440 steel, so pretty equivalent to 440C. There's a smaller version of this as well. A couple different colors and different runs were made on this as well. But those were really the only ones that CRKT themselves put out. So I was a little bit surprised when I came across this knife a year or so ago, and this is a carbon fiber one. Again, Snap-on exclusive, which is cool to do like runs and variations, but like, why wouldn't you ever have just an actual CF Ripple? There are plenty of people who love this design who would have paid to buy this knife, from CRKT, but unfortunately, like, they never put it out themselves. It only went to Snap-on. The problem with that is, one, a lot of people don't know that this ever existed, and two, the price point, like, Snap-on charges basically MSRP, so you don't get any like street price for it. You're paying, I think these were running like $85 or $90 on their website, something ridiculous like that. I mean, it's a good knife, but come on. You're not going to pay that much money for it. And so that's the problem with this one as well. So this has a plastic scale. It is assisted opening, which will give you a hint as to what is interesting about it, because it's the first Ripple that I know of that's assisted opening. But it's 8CR, plastic scales, assisted, overseas made, 65 bucks. 65 bucks. You can get out of here with that. It's ridiculous. And again, it's being marketed to the Snap-on people, and I'm sure there's some kind of deal in place that makes CRKT make money. But I feel bad for the person who goes to a Snap-on truck or goes online to Snap-on and spends $65 for this knife. It's not a bad knife. It's a great design. Obviously, I've spent 3.5 minutes talking about it. Like, I really like the design and I like the knife, but $65, no, that's not at all competitive. This is a $30 knife. That's what it should be. It should be cheaper than every one of the other ones that was on the table. And I think this, even with inflation, this one is right around $30, $35, if it's even still in production. But again, like, this is a lesser knife than this. And it's 65 bucks. I mean, that's just a joke. And so that's the frustrating thing when it comes to Snap-on and that collaboration, is that there's not another avenue to get these at a decent price. There's a stainless steel version of this now as well, like a new stainless steel scale, I guess. That one's $65 too on the Snap-on website. So again, it's a bummer, and it's just something where I just watch eBay, and eventually if they pop up, I got this one for $30 myself. So, I mean, that's definitely worth paying for. And, there's a couple models and a couple brand new designs actually that are Snap-on exclusive that I'm just biding my time, waiting for them to pop up on eBay so I can justify picking it up. Alright guys, so the rant portion of this video is officially over, at least stopped for now, because I do want to take just a minute or two and talk about one of the really interesting aspects about this knife. And we're going to have to slightly take it apart, just take off the scale in order for you to see. And Again, I didn't even realize when I picked this knife up that it was going to be assisted. I didn't know until I got it in hand, and I just assumed it's a CRKT Ripple. It's going to be on IKBS and a flipper just like all these other ones, you know. Small one right here, ball bearings, pretty good action, good stuff, right? So I get this in hand, and it is definitely not on IKBS. It is a flipper, but that is assisted opening. And that struck me as pretty curious. Interesting. All right. Well, maybe it's just a way to save money. I'm not exactly sure, but it is something different. And yeah, I wanted to get an understanding of what exactly the mechanism was, because CRKT has, at least in my experience, they've always had interesting assisted opening mechanisms. You know, they've had a couple knives that have like the big torsion bar that goes down the back and it just sort of slingshots the blade out. They have, let me see if I have it right here. Yeah, they have a number of like mechanisms similar to this. This is, I think, called the fire safe, where you have to push down the thumb stud and then push it forward, and that gives it like the assisted kind of kick. They have a similar kind of thing with a thumb disc that does the same type of motion. But I've never seen them have something quite like this. Quite as familiar as this, let's say. And yeah, I'm just going to have to take this front scale off in order for you to see. And if you are someone who disassembles knives, particularly Kershaw USA made knives from about 10 years ago, what I'm about to show you is going to be pretty familiar. And actually, Kershaw overseas knives from about now, because what we're about to look at, if I can get it undone, here we go, is a speed safe mechanism, essentially. Pop this back in. I mean, take a look at that. If you have ever seen an assisted opening knife from Kershaw, like, this is what they look like. So, the inside, you know, a lot of times that torsion bar is a different shape. And so, you know, on the leak, it has a different curvature. But I've seen them with this exact kind of like up and down kind of roller coaster loop-de-loop deal. And yeah, I mean, this is, it's odd. It is definitely unusual that CRKT has something going on here that is very much like what Kershaw has been doing for a long, long time. And I don't know if there's like some type of agreement, or if maybe like the patent on what Kershaw's doing is run out, and so CRKT is able to replicate it. Maybe it's slightly different to the extent that that maybe there is no copying. I don't know. I'm not sure. Now, honestly, I don't really care that much. I just think it's very, very odd that on a snap-on knife, I would see something like very different from anything I've ever seen on a CRKT. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe CRKT has used this before. If they have, definitely let me know down below. Maybe this is about as boring of a of a thing to show that that there could ever be. But for me, it was something that piqued my interest. And again, when it comes back to the Ripple and what my expectation was, it's certainly not what I was expecting, just because of, you know, what these knives traditionally are versus what I have in front of me right here. All right, guys, and I'm getting this one back together and wrapping this up. So again, not sure how interesting this aspect of it was, but for me, I'd never really seen CRKT do anything like this. So yeah, I wanted to share it all with you. Definitely, I appreciate you guys listening to the rant, but it is just something that is just like crazy that, you know, you have people, I guess you have people who are buying these knives for 65 bucks, 70 bucks, like some of the other ones that are exclusives that go for even more than that. And it's like, it's a budget knife made overseas. Like, it shouldn't really cost that much money. You know, like I just don't understand it, and I don't understand why the variety of materials that they're using just isn't made available to the people who would appreciate the knife the most and are really big fans of the model. You know, we can get it, but it's not as accessible as it should be. So that's really it, guys. Any other questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, let me know down below. Let me know your thoughts. I really appreciate you watching. Thanks again. Take care and have a good one.